Coming up, daughter of prolific former Principal Chief Wilma Mankiller, Gina Olaya carries on her mother's spirit, despite facing some of the same severe health issues that haunted her mother.
But I don't think about what happened yesterday, and I don't think what's going to happen tomorrow. How am I going to feel? What am I going to do? I live in the day, and that's it. And that's what Mom instilled in me.
And
it's all about passing the skills along. If you hoard your skills, when you die, they're gone.
watch as Cherokee silversmith Steve Mashburn crafts beautiful jewelry and shares his passion with his students. And
training is tough, but it gets me to be able to see amazing places and do amazing things that I couldn't do if I didn't put in all of the training.
try to keep up with ultramarathon runner Lori Enlow and find out what fuels her to keep going for the gold for more than 100 miles. Plus,
the war was going to come to Indian Territory whether they wanted it or not. There was a lot of infighting amongst the Cherokees. There were pro-Union Cherokees and there were pro-Confederate Cherokees as well.
learn about how Cherokee troops affected the U.S. Civil War at the Battle of Pea Ridge.
The Cherokees.
A thriving American Indian tribe.
Our history.
Our culture.
Our people.
Our future.
The principles of a historic nation.
Sewn into the fabric of a modern world.
Hundreds of thousands strong.
Learning. Growing.
Succeeding.
And steadfast.
In the past, we have persevered through struggle.
But the future is ours to write.
Osiyo.
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 These are the voices of the Cherokee people.
Osiyo, I'm Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. Welcome to Tahlequah, Oklahoma, capital city of the Cherokee Nation. For generations, the Cherokee story has been told by others. Today, through this groundbreaking series, we're taking ownership of our own story and telling it as beautifully and authentically as we can. I hope you enjoy these profiles of our people, our language, our history, and our culture. And please make plans to come visit us sometime. Wado.
Osiyo, it's how we say hello in Cherokee. I'm your host, Jennifer Lauren, at the Cherokee National History Museum in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, where you can learn more about the Cherokee Nation's involvement in the U.S. Civil War. We'll have more on that a little bit later in our Cherokee Almanac. Gina Olaya is a living legacy, the daughter of the late Wilma Mankiller, Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation. Gina carries her mother's words and wisdom with her each day, but she also carries an unfortunate family trait, the same serious illness that afflicted her mother and many others in her family.
When I was sick the first time, Mom came to me and said, you don't mourn the past and you don't fear the future. What you do is you live for today. And so when I wake up and my vision's really dark, then I'll figure out how am I going to function today with dark vision. If my vision is way better, then I celebrate that I have better vision that day. But I don't think about what happened yesterday, and I don't think what's going to happen tomorrow. How am I going to feel? What am I going to do? I live in the day, and that's it. And that's what Mom instilled in me. Hello, I'm Gina Olaya, the youngest daughter of Wilma Mankiller. I hail from Tahlequah, Oklahoma, where I've lived for the past 40 years. I'm the survivor of 5 major health issues, although I've kept my job for the past 19 years. I am the Director for Cultural Art and Design for Cherokee Nation businesses. What I do is work with an architect to make sure that our buildings look and feel Cherokee before they're actually built. The chief will put together a committee of people. We'll work with that committee to figure out what art we'll put in the buildings. And then it's my responsibility to match those pieces together and then figure out where they're going to be hung within the building. I've done every healthcare facility. I've done most all of the office buildings, and I've done all of the casinos. I was born in San Francisco because my mom's family took part in a relocation program in 1955. and we lived in California until the late 70s when we moved back to Oklahoma. It was really difficult growing up in Oklahoma because we went from roller skating on the street to jumping over cow patties. And then we moved to a house with no running water, barely electricity in the middle of a cow field, and it was a stark difference in how to live. But the lessons that we learned early in life came from living in San Francisco, to not base any friendship on race, color, creed, religion, skin color, LGBTQ, whatever, and to be independent and free and be free thinkers and to do for yourself and not depend on others. All of that was learned in San Francisco. Even though the relocation program was horrific, I believe it also provided a bit of education to those who lived through it. You know, when I speak about Mom, I section her life off into 3 chapters. The first chapter is when we were in California. She was a very free spirit, and we did a lot of traveling. We interacted with a lot of coastal tribal people, and my sister and I went to an Indian school, and it was just vastly different. And then when we came to Oklahoma, Mom started getting into working for the tribe. Her demeanor was changing. Her as a person was changing, and by the time she was deputy chief and then into becoming a chief, she was different. And so she became Wilma Mankiller, that people know in the second chapter of her life. By the time Mom was chief, I was in college. So there was a distance between our relationship because she was off doing what she needed to do. We didn't see her a lot in the years that she was in office. She was extremely busy during her entire tenure as chief. Makes me sad. But the other part of it is that you become overly just proud of the fact that she was doing what she was doing. She was making a difference.
We're in Bell, Oklahoma, Adair County. This is a very special place to our family, specifically to our mom, who started the Bell Water Project here. Had a lot of meetings in this community building.
It brings back that sense of community that my mother built here many years ago, that just remembering the gatherings here and the people that were here at that time and knowing that a lot of those families are still in this community.
These people became our family.
She brought water to these people, you know, and that's something that generations to come are gonna remember here.
Yep, especially when they get their water bill.
Yeah.
And then after she left office and went through the first bout of cancer, which was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, she became a beautiful mixture of the first 2 chapters. So the third chapter of her life was still this professional Wilma that was fighting for the rights of everything, basically. But she became fun-loving again. She liked to dance and sing and, you know, have fun. She had a great sense of humor. She knew when she was younger that she had polycystic kidney disease. That's the start of all of our illnesses, is polycystic kidney disease. And Mom was actually with me when I found out I did have polycystic kidney disease. And that's what started the down spiral of my health. I have been through the ringer. I have. And sometimes I can't believe it, you know? I really can't believe that, you know, I just survived my 3rd bout with cancer, and so I lost my entire vision on my right eye due to the cancer. And then, ironically, not a month after I had had that procedure, I started losing the vision in my left eye. They ended up finding a tumor the size of a golf ball in my nasal cavity, and it had ruined my optic nerve. When you have chronic illness, it's extremely difficult to be functional. There's a story that you have to tell yourself in order to get through it every day. And you can't feel sorry for yourself. You know, strength comes from waking up every day and praying and saying, I'm going to be a good person. I'm going to make good decisions. You know, I'm going to be nice to everyone. That's where your strength comes from. And she taught me that.
As an award-winning Cherokee silversmith, Steve Mashburn is a master of metal. At home, he's also an avid beekeeper. We join this man of many talents as he helps his metalsmith students find their spark.
I've loved making stuff all my life. I've loved fixing stuff all my life, and still do. It's part of my job, and it's part of who I am, I guess. My name's Steve Mashburn. I'm a Cherokee silversmith. Well, like most people, I have a 9-to-5 job. I work at a glass factory. I'm a senior electrical guy. Too many hobbies, hobby poor, that's one way to say it. I do enjoy a lot of things. When I was a teenager, I remember asking a couple of my uncles, where do you go to learn how to make a diamond ring? And they didn't know, but that kind of stuck with me over the years. And then in my 30s, I met a man who started the silversmithing course at Bacone College, Mr. Vernon McNeil. And so he became my mentor. Fast forward a little bit, I have a shop of my own, and I teach. I've been teaching for almost 10 years at the Cherokee Art Center, and I taught privately at my house before that. Jewelry, it's an odd thing in a way. For some people, it gives them a sense of power. They feel empowered if they have a nice ring on or a nice pendant. Everyone generally appreciates it. I never used to wear jewelry before I started making it, and now I do. To go out, yeah, put on your nice new cuff that you just made and have the waitress say, wow, where'd you get that? That's really a good feeling. This is a mill, kind of like Grandma's wringer washer, and it squeezes the materials I put in there, it squeezes them together. So what we did was we printed a texture on the copper. It takes time to learn the techniques, and then it takes more time to find your voice, what your style is, what you like, what you want your art to look like. I grew up here in Muskogee. My grandmother was Cherokee. To me, it means knowing your past, knowing who your relatives are, knowing where you came from, knowing what they had to endure for you to be here today. Pretty rough shake. And taking that and being a good person that you can be and helping other people. We can't quit doing that. It's all about passing the skills along. If you hoard your skills, when you die, they're gone. So I like to teach students, bend the ends around where they stick on the back. I get a real thrill out of starting with someone that doesn't know anything. As a Cherokee, one of the metals that Cherokees used earlier on was copper, basically because it was cheaper and probably more readily available. So the copper gorgets, rings, cuffs, that was, and it works a little easier than silver, although it does tarnish. But the iconic stuff like 4 directions, 4 colors, the sacred fire, the water spider, those iconic images, those all tell a story about your tribe's history, your people's history. And that's part of what we do in our class is we talk about that and explore those things. And yeah, we make modern stuff too, but it's helped me connect with other artists and learn more about my own culture, the background of my own culture. I like seeing people learn. Knowledge is power, you know, and if you can become an artist, you can kind of take charge of your life, at least in some areas, whether it's to make money or an expression of what you feel, or just to make objects of beauty. That's what it's all about. And sharing that stuff with other people is a bonus. Yeah, you can do a lot just by trying.
Despite attempts to remain neutral during the U.S. Civil War, the Cherokee Nation found itself drawn into the neighboring conflict and deeply divided. In this Cherokee Almanac, we learn that nowhere was this more evident than at the Battle of Pea Ridge. In the American Civil War, states fought over certain rights and ideologies. Neighboring Indian tribes, including the Cherokee Nation, were sometimes drawn into the conflict, in spite of being sovereign nations apart from the Union.
One of the main reasons that the Cherokee Nation became involved in the Civil War is that their economy is tied to other states around it.
Although Cherokee Nation's principal chief, John Ross, takes a strong stand for neutrality, his strategy is undermined by the withdrawal of federal troops from Indian Territory and the rekindling of old feuds within the tribe.
The war was going to come to Indian Territory whether they wanted it or not. There was a lot of infighting amongst the Cherokees. There were pro-Union Cherokees and there were pro-Confederate Cherokees as well. By the late 1861, it was becoming obvious that they were going to have to choose a side.
With great reluctance, Chief Ross signs an agreement with the Confederacy. In late 1861, two Cherokee Confederate regiments formed under Stand Watie and John Drew. Despite having a common Cherokee background, the two regiments were not closely aligned.
The two regiments of the Cherokees, that were formed up really were kind of down the lines of political affiliation, as that a lot of the men that were in Drew's regiment had been opposed to the removal back in the 1830s, and a lot of the men that were within the Watie regiment were pro-removal. That old divide and that old flame is still there.
John Drew's faction, they principally saw their role as almost a bodyguard for John Ross. They were lukewarm Confederates at best. They were anti-slavery. Most of these soldiers were traditionalists and Cherokees.
Both regiments were organized under Confederate General Albert Pike and his commander, Earl Van Dorn. The Cherokee Nation's agreement with the Confederacy stipulated its Indian troops would not fight outside of Indian Territory, but the growing need to secure Missouri for the South caused both regiments to be ordered into Arkansas in early March of 1862.
Pike, along with a group of Texans with the two Cherokee regiments, continued through a massive cold front and snowstorm on their way over to join forces with General Van Dorn's army in northwest Arkansas.
Most of the troops were poorly clothed, poorly equipped, and of course the food was also inadequate as well.
As they're told to pack very lightly because they're going to be moving very fast. They have very little food, they have very little protection away from the cold.
Supplies were left behind them in Bentonville as they marched 10 miles to Pea Ridge to make their stand. Weather conditions made fast travel impossible. Pike's troops arrived late on March 6th, exhausted and hungry, not realizing Union troops were less than 2 miles from their encampment. Fighting began the next day, with the Confederates outnumbering the Union by more than 5,000 troops.
The battle starts on March 7th, two separate engagements separated by about 3.5 miles.
What happened next forever cast a shadow on the reputation of Pike's Indian troops.
The two Cherokee units and a group of Texans attacked a federal battery and took it over. And once the battery was recaptured by the Federals, there were reports of some of the men had been scalped.
Federal soldiers noticed that there were at least 8 soldiers from the 3rd Iowa Cavalry that were scalped, and that there were several other bodies that had been mutilated. It looked like they'd been cut with knives or tomahawks.
The incident caused a furor among the federal ranks, with fingers pointed from all sides.
Stan Wade's men blamed John Drew's regiment. John Drew's regiment blamed Stan Wade's regiment. We don't really know exactly who did the scalping, and it kind of put a distrust from both sides to Native American troops from that point on.
Union reinforcements arrived overnight, and a pitched battle began at dawn the next morning. The worn-out Confederate troops were now outnumbered and outgunned. Although they fought determinedly, they were soon overcome. The Union victory at Pea Ridge effectively stopped Missouri from joining the Confederacy. Drew's men returned to the Cherokee Nation in defeat and frustration, while Wade's men regrouped and moved on to fight other battles.
Drew's regiment is starting a slow erosion of desertion at this point.
And so you've got a lot of John Drew's men desert and leave the 1st Cherokee Mounted Rifles, and they join what would become the 2nd and 3rd Kansas Indian Home Guard. And I believe it's over 600 of his men actually joined those 2 Indian Home Guard units.
Although Cherokee soldiers on both sides comprised only a small percentage of the overall troops who fought in the U.S. Civil War, they played a key role in pivotal battles such as Pea Ridge.
Jalagi Idewonihi. Let's talk Cherokee.
Hi, Sanas. What are you doing?
Osiyo Warrior. Jalagi Idewoni's guesty.
Hawa.
Osta.
Sanas ka do hadane.
Kaliski Inaski.
Ni inaski
Hawa. Jundalena dani yawaya anaskiska inena.
Lori Enlow is not just a runner, she's an ultra-marathon runner. She perseveres through mental blocks and injuries to achieve success in both her running and with her work as a nurse practitioner for Cherokee Nation.
For me, running is meditative. It's kind of my me time. It gives me time to pray, to think. It just centers me and gets me ready for what the next part of the day is going to be and what I want that day to be like. And then it's just an opportunity to just be in the moment. I'm Lori Enlow. I am a mother of 3, wife, and nurse practitioner and ultra endurance runner. So a typical day for me starts out, if I have a run in the morning, it depends on my run schedule. Actually, kind of everything revolves around my run schedule now. So depending on what my run is that day, I may get up at 4:30 and start my run. It's anywhere from 5 to 9 miles, depending on the day. And then get home and start waking kids up and getting ready for work. And then I head off to my day job, which is I work for an elder program. And my clinic day is seeing all high-risk elderly patients. I think the most important thing for me is balance. So trying to find balance. I love racing, and I'm very type A personality, so very driven. And if I have a goal, I want to go straight after it and focus on that 100%. But life is a balance, and I have lots of goals. I have primary goals. My primary is my kids, my family, my husband, my work, and then running is the fun one on the side. It eats up a lot of time and it eats up a lot of energy, but the running and the racing fuels me in the other areas of my life. And I don't always love running. Training is tough, but it gets me to be able to see amazing places and do amazing things that I couldn't do if I didn't put in all of the training. For me, training's the hardest part. Racing's the easy part, per se. You're in a beautiful scenery, you've got tons of people cheering you on, everybody's rooting for you. It's hard not to get through the tough times for me in racing. And then when I'm done, it's an incredible feeling of accomplishment to finish that and to go, you know what, I was able to stay in it the whole way.
This is day 3 of a 3-day stage race. Started on Friday. This is called the Silamo, 3 days of Silamo. We're here in Blanchard Springs, Arkansas. And day 1 was a 50K, which is 31 miles. And then day 2 was yesterday, 50 miles. And today is day 3, which is 12 miles. So I had a strong day yesterday. So I'm in second place. I've got a 45-minute cushion. Fingers crossed I don't get lost and I stay upright and moving. Hopefully I'll keep that second place, but you never know. You just never know.
3, 2, 1, go!
In a 30-minute race, speed is king. You know, if you're fast, you're gonna win. In a 50-mile race, speed is still extremely important, but it doesn't always win the race because the speed person may not have the endurance and may not have the efficiency to not have issues that slow them down significantly.
So I ended up second female overall, and by default, I get the Masters win because the first female is 42, and she would have gotten Masters, but since she got overall, they're like, we'll pass it down. So I'll take it. I was happy I finished second, so I did well, did better than I thought I would.
No intention of stopping anytime soon. Yeah. I haven't figured out where my limit is yet. So maybe someday I'll find that limit, but I'm pretty optimistic that I will never find my limit. I hope I never find my limit.
We hope you enjoyed our show, and remember you can always watch entire episodes and share your favorite stories online at Osio.tv. There is no Cherokee word for goodbye because we know we'll see you again. We say, Dodadago Ha'i. Wado.